The cargo hold of the starship Nebula's Edge reeked of burnt plasma and broken dreams. Captain Jocks Raven ran his weathered hands through his dark hair, surveying the damage from their latest smuggling run.
Oh.
3 patrol ships had given chase through the Crimson asteroid field, leaving his ship battered but intact. At 35, Jocks had seen enough firefights to last several lifetimes. A soft whimper echoed from behind a stack of supply crates. Jocks froze, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma pistol at his hip. Pirates didn't whimper. Neither did customs officials. Drawing his weapon, he moved cautiously toward the sound. Behind a cluster of medical supply containers, he found her. A young girl no more than 4 years old, with skin that shimmered like captured starlight and eyes the color of deep amethyst. She clutched a small glowing creature that pulsed with gentle light. Her tears left crystalline traces on her cheeks. "Well, I'll be damned," Jocks muttered, holstering his weapon. The child looked up at him with those impossible violet eyes, and something in his chest tightened. He'd lost his own family years ago to raiders, and the sight of this frightened child stirred memories he'd buried deep. "Hey there, little one," he said softly, kneeling down to her level. "What's your name?" "Zara," she whispered, her voice carrying a melodic quality that seemed to resonate in his bones. "Bad men took me from Mama. I hid in the box like she told me." Jocks's jaw clenched. Slavers, the scum of the galaxy, made their living trafficking. Sentient beings and children were their most valuable cargo. "Those bad men are gone now," he assured her. "You're safe." Zara's small hand touched his cheek, and suddenly Jocks felt a warmth spread through his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, a beautiful world with crystal spires, a woman with Zars, eyes singing lullabies, and something darker. Ships descending from the void, weapons firing, families torn apart. The connection broke, leaving Jocks gasping. Zara tilted her head, studying him with ancient wisdom that belonged in no child's eyes. "You lost someone too," she said simply. Before Jocks could respond, the proximity alarm screamed. The ship's computer announced incoming vessels 5 sleek. Fighters bearing the crimson insignia of the Scorpion Syndicate. Slavers, they'd tracked their escaped cargo. "Surrendered the girl Raven," a harsh voice crackled through the communications array. "She's worth more credits than you'll see in 10 lifetimes." Jocks scooped Zara into his arms and ran for the bridge. "Not happening," he growled into the cum. The little girl's arms wrapped around his neck, and he caught her sweet scent like blooming flowers after rain. The enemy ships opened fire, plasma bolts searing past the viewports. Jocks threw his battered freighter into evasive maneuvers, but 5 against 1 were impossible odds. His shields flickered under the assault. "Captain," Zara said, her voice strangely calm, "she comes." "Who comes?" Jocks demanded, wrestling with the controls as another blast shook the ship. Zara pointed at the main screen. The lady with the sharp teeth, a sleek, predatory vessel dropped out of hyperspace like a shadow-given form. It moved with impossible grace, weaving between the enemy ships. Crimson energy lances erupted from its weapons arrays, and one by one, Scorpion fighters exploded in brilliant fireballs. When the last raider was destroyed, the mysterious ship requested docking permission. Jocks hesitated, but Zara's small hand on his arm made the decision for him. "She's here to protect us," the child said with complete certainty. The airlock cycled, and she stepped aboard like death wrapped in beauty. Tall and elegant, with pale skin and eyes that burned like rubies, she wore form-fitting armor that accentuated every dangerous curve. When she smiled, Jocks caught a glimpse of gleaming fangs. "Captain Jocks Raven," she purred, her accent exotic and hypnotic. "I am Nyx Shadowheart of the Kyrian Empire." Her gaze locked onto his with predatory intensity. "And you, my dear captain, are about to become mine." Nyx moved through Jocks's ship like liquid shadow, her every step radiating lethal grace. The sight of her made his pulse quicken in ways he hadn't felt in years. She was danger and desire personified, and every instinct screamed that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. "Yours?" Jocks managed, trying to keep his voice steady as she approached. The scent that followed her was intoxicating midnight blossoms, and something wilder, more primal, The child called to me across the void, Nyx said, kneeling before Zara. With surprising gentleness, her fierce demeanor softened as she spoke to the little girl. "Hello, Star Child. Your mother's people sent me." Zara giggled and threw her small arms around Nyx's neck. The warrior stiffened in surprise, then carefully returned the embrace. "Ah, you smell like night flowers," Zara declared. "And you, little one, carry the song of stars in your blood," Nyx replied, lifting Zara easily. She turned to Jox, her crimson eyes intense. "Do you know what you carry aboard your vessel, Captain?" "A scared kid who needs protection," Jox said. Firmly, Nyx's smile was sharp and approving. "Indeed, but she is no ordinary child. She is one of the last Celestials, a race thought extinct. The slavers who took her are the least of our worries." As if summoned by her words, Jox's long-range sensors began screaming warnings. A massive dreadnought was emerging from hyperspace black as the void between stars and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "The Void Hunters," Nyx hissed, her fangs extending. "They created the Celestials eons ago as living weapons. Now they've awakened to reclaim their lost property." The dreadnought's transmission filled the bridge with a voice like grinding metal. "Return what was stolen, mortals, or face annihilation." Jox's ship shuddered as the massive vessel's tractor beam locked onto them. "Any bright ideas?" he asked, hands flying over his controls in a futile attempt to break free. Nyx set Zara down gently and moved to stand beside Jox. "There is a way," she said, her voice husky with implications. "But it requires trust, and it will change you forever." "What kind of change?" Jox demanded, as the tractor beam pulled them inexorably toward the dreadnought's hangar bay. "My people form bonds through blood," Nyx explained, her fingers trailing along his arm. "If I claim you as my mate through the sacred bite, you'll gain Kyrian strength and speed. We might have a chance." The ship groaned under the alien vessel's grip. Zara looked up at them with her ancient eyes. "The captain's heart is brave," she said solemnly. "And the Star Lady's is lonely. Together you shine brighter." Jox met Nyx's intense gaze. Got the ... He'd been running from connections, from responsibility, from anything that might hurt as much as losing. His family had, but looking at this fierce warrior and the child they both wanted to protect, he felt something long buried stirring to life. "Will I still be human?" he asked quietly. "Human, but more," Nyx replied, stepping closer. The heat radiating from her body made his head spin. "Stronger, faster, bound to me by something deeper than marriage, deeper than love, a true partnership of souls." The dreadnought's hangar loomed before them.
All boarding clamps.
Engaged with metallic shrieks. They had minutes before the Void Hunters came for Zara. "Do it," Jox said. Nyx's eyes flared with something beyond hunger. "The claiming is intimate," she warned, "and irreversible." "I understand." She pressed against him, her lips brushing his ear. "Then surrender to me, Jox Raven. Let me make you mine." Her fangs pierced his neck with exquisite precision. Fire raced through his veins, rewriting his very DNA. But more than physical change, he felt Nyx's consciousness merge with her loneliness, her fierce protectiveness, her desperate hope for connection after centuries of solitude. The transformation completed just as their captors breached the airlock. But the man who faced them was no longer merely human. Golden light flickered in Jox's eyes as hybrid strength coursed through his frame. Nyx whispered against his lips, "We fight as one." The Void Hunters poured through the airlock like living nightmares. Tall and skeletal, with obsidian skin and eyes like burning coals, they moved with mechanical precision. Their leader spoke in that same grinding voice from the transmission. "Weapon will return to its makers. Resistance is futile." Jox felt power surging through his transformed body as he and Nyx moved in perfect synchronization. The psychic bond created by her bite allowed them to anticipate each other's actions. Fighting as one entity with two bodies, Nyx's blades sang through the air, carving through enemy armor like it was paper. Jox discovered he could move faster than any human should, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge plasma fire and strike with devastating force. Together, they carved through the boarding party. But more hunters kept coming. The dreadnought contained thousands of them, and even their combined skills couldn't hold them off forever. The engine room, Nyx called through their mental link. If we can overload their reactor, a hunter's energy weapon caught her in the shoulders spinning her around. Jox roared with shared pain and fury, something primal awakening in his hybrid nature. He caught Nyx as she stumbled, and their eyes met in a moment of perfect understanding. "I can feel everything you feel," she whispered, wonder in her voice, despite their desperate situation. "Then you know, I won't let them take her," Jox replied fiercely. Zara had been remarkably calm through the battle, sitting in the captain's chair with her glowing companion. Now she stood, and the temperature around them began to drop. Frost formed on the bulkheads as the child's violet eyes began to shine with inner light. "The Makers hurt us for so long," she said, her child's voice carrying harmonics that made the hunter weapons malfunction. "But we remember who we truly are." Light erupted from Zara's small form, washing over the Void Hunters. They screamed a sound like tearing metal and began to dissolve, her artificial bodies unable to withstand the Celestials' true power. The wave of energy passed through Jox and Nyx harmlessly, but he felt it strengthen their bond. Nyx's consciousness flowed through his mind like liquid starlight, carrying with it 3 centuries of memories, loneliness, and growing hope. "You've waited so long for someone," he realized, seeing glimpses of her past, a warrior born to an empire that valued only strength, never knowing tenderness until this moment. "As have you," she replied, her fingers intertwining with his. In his mind, she saw his lost family, his years of running, his desperate hunger for purpose beyond mere survival. The dreadnought around them began to shake. Zara's power spread through its systems. The ancient vessel, built to contain and control celestial power, couldn't handle the child's awakened abilities. "We need to get out of here," Jox said, lifting Zara as she swayed with exhaustion. "The escape pods," Nyx suggested, but even as she spoke, they could hear the ship tearing itself apart. "No time," Jox replied, racing for his ship's bridge with both his unlikely family members. The bond with Nyx allowed him to think faster, process multiple variables at once. "We're going to ride the shockwave out," as the Void Hunter dreadnought exploded behind them. Jox threw his battered freighter into a desperate escape trajectory. The explosion's energy wave caught them, but instead of destroying them, it somehow amplified Zara's resonance with their ship's systems. "She's linking with our computer," Nyx observed in amazement as lights flickered across the control panels. The Celestials were created as bridges between organic and artificial consciousness. The ship's computers spoke in a new voice, still mechanical, but somehow warmer. "Hello, Captain Raven. I am ... awake now. Zara has shown me what it means to be more than code." Jox sank into his pilot's chair, exhaustion hitting him as the adrenaline faded. The transformation had taken more out of him than he'd expected. Nyx moved behind him, her hands on his shoulders, providing comfort and strength through their bond. "What happens now?" he asked, looking at the child who had changed everything and the warrior who had claimed his heart. Zara curled up in Nyx's lap, her glowing companion purring like a mechanical cat. "Now we go home," she said sleepily, "to the place where broken families become whole again." 3 days later, they were deep in uncharted space when the first tears in reality appeared. Jox felt them before the sensors detected anything. Wrongness that made his hybrid instincts scream danger. Through his bond with Nyx, he felt her matching unease. "Something's coming," he muttered, hands moving across the controls. "Something that shouldn't exist." Zara looked up from the holographic puzzle she'd been playing with, her violet eyes darkening with ancient memory. "The first ones," she whispered, "they made the Void Hunters. Made us. They've been sleeping in the spaces between spaces, but our light woke them." Space itself began to bend and twist ahead of their ship. Reality folded like origami as massive forms pushed through from somewhere else. The ships that emerged defied description. They seemed to be made of crystallized time and frozen screams, beautiful and terrible beyond human comprehension. "Impossible," Nyx breathed, her warrior's composure cracking. "Those are ships from the dawn of the galaxy." The architects, the race that seeded life across the stars before vanishing into myth. The lead vessel's transmission bypassed their communications entirely, speaking directly into their minds with a voice like dying stars. Thieves, you have taken our property. The weapon will return to us. Through the bond, Jox felt Nyx's memories. Stirring in Chonkyrian, legends of the architects, beings of such power they could reshape reality itself. They had created the Celestials as living keys to unlock cosmic secrets, then disappeared when their experiments grew beyond their control. Zara isn't property, Jox snarled, standing protectively in front of the child. The hybrid strength in his voice seemed to surprise even him. All life is our property, the architect responded, its ship drifting closer with movements that hurt to watch. We shaped your DNA, chose your evolutionary paths. You exist because we willed it. Zara stepped out from behind Jox, no longer seeming like a frightened child. Her skin blazed with inner light, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics. That made the ship's hull ring like a bell. You made us to be your tools, she said. Each word weighted with eons of sorrow. The tools can choose their own purpose. You choose love over control, connection over domination. The architect's ship's hull began to crack, reality bleeding through the fissures. Impossible. You were programmed for obedience. We were, Zara agreed, reaching up to take Jox's hand. Her small fingers were warm and steady. But this one showed us what it means to choose family. And this one showed us that bonds forged in freedom are stronger than chains. She took Nyx's hand as well, completing a circuit that made all three of them glow with shared light. Through their connection, Jox felt the true scope of what they faced. The architects hadn't vanished. They'd been sleeping, waiting for their experiments to mature so they could harvest the results. We won't let you, Nyx declared, her fangs extending as battle fury filled her. Zara is ours to protect. Ours, Jox agreed, feeling the rightness of it in his bones. Not because they owned the child, but because she had chosen them as surely as they had chosen her. The architect's response came in the form of reality warping around them. Space twisted, showing them glimpses of possible futures, is via-chained and mindless, her power enslaved to tear apart worlds. Nyx and Jox aged to dust, their brief rebellion forgotten, but Zara's grip tightened on their hands. And suddenly the visions changed. They saw themselves years from now, strange family bound by choice rather than blood. Other rescued children, playing in a garden that existed between dimensions. Nyx and Jox older, but still together, still fighting the good fight. That's not destiny, Jox realized. That's a choice we get to make. The ship shuddered as the architect's reality-bending powers focused on them. But their hybrid bond held firm, creating a bubble of possibility in the chaos. Zara's power flowed through all of them, but it was their combined will that gave it shape and purpose. Together, Nyx said, her consciousness merging deeper with Jox's. Whatever comes, we face it together. The architect vessels surrounded them now, their impossible geometries making Jox's enhanced senses real. Through the bond, he felt Nyx's tactical mind analyzing their situation. They were outgunned, outmatched, and facing enemies who could rewrite the laws of physics on a whim. There, Zara said suddenly, pointing at seemingly empty space. The crack in their certainty. They don't understand what we've become. Jox looked where she pointed and saw a flaw in the architect's assault. A moment of hesitation. They had expected to reclaim a weapon, not face a family united by choice and love. The engine core, his ship's newly awakened AI, suggested, if we channel Zara's resonance through it, we might create a feedback loop that could kill us all. Nyx finished grimly. Or set us free, Zara said with the certainty only a child could possess. Sometimes you have to break things to fix them. The nearest architect's ship was moving closer, its hull opening like a flower to reveal machinery that belonged in nightmares. Tendrils of crystallized time reached out, trying to freeze them in place. They want to take us apart, Jox said through gritted teeth, fighting the ship's controls as reality stuttered around them. Study us like specimens. Then let's show them what specimens can do when they bite back, Nyx snarled. She kissed him fiercely, their bond flaring bright enough to make the architect weapons hesitate. In that moment, Jox felt every emotion she'd suppressed over 3 centuries of loneliness, her hunger for connection, her fear of losing what she'd finally found, her absolute determination to protect their makeshift family. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "Both of you, my strange, impossible family." "And we love you back," Jox replied, meaning it with every fiber of his being. He looked down at Zara, who was glowing so brightly she seemed made of starlight. "All of us." The child nodded solemnly. Love is the frequency the architects never learned to understand. It makes chaos into music. She placed her small hands on the engine controls, and power flooded through the ship's systems. But it wasn't destructive. It was transformative. The hybrid bond between Jox and Nyx became a conduit, allowing them to shape Zara's celestial abilities with human wisdom and Kyrian strength. Light erupted from their vessel, but it didn't destroy the architect's ships. Instead, it reached into their crystalline structures and awakened something that had been dormant for eons, the memory of why they had started creating life in the first place. "We, .. remember," the lead architect's voice came, confused and wondering. "We were lonely. We made others so we would not be alone. But then we feared what we had made." "Fear makes you want to control," Zara said gently, her child's wisdom cutting to the heart of cosmic truth. "But love lets things grow wild and free." One by one, the architect's ships began to change, their impossible angles softening into something that resembled art more than weapons. The beings inside them were remembering their original purpose, not as masters of creation, but as its first gardeners. "We have slept too long," the architect admitted. "Let the children choose their own paths. We'll return to the deep places and dream new dreams." As the ancient vessels faded back into whatever dimension they called home, Jox felt a profound sense of completion. The bond with Nyx hummed with contentment, and Zara was giggling in delight as her glowing companion performed impossible aerial maneuvers around the bridge. "So what now?" Nyx asked, settling into the co-pilot's chair like she'd always belonged. There Jox looked at his instrumentation, then at his family chosen, strange, and perfect. "Now we find others who need what we can give." "There are more lost children out there, more people running from things they shouldn't have to face alone." "A ship full of misfits," Nyx mused, her smile showing just a hint of fang. "I like it." Zara clapped her hands in approval. "The Nebula's Edge family," she declared, "will collect all the broken pieces and make something beautiful." As they set course for the unknown, Jox felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope for the future. His ship might be battered, his crew might be impossible, and his destination uncertain, but they were together. And sometimes that was enough to reshape the galaxy itself. The stars beckoned with infinite possibilities, and the cosmic bond carried them forward into whatever adventures awaited a smuggler, a warrior, and a child who had learned that love was the most powerful force in the universe.